This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states or situations.
I'm Cindy Lauper with fellow Cosentyx advocate, Chef Michelle Bernstein.
We'll share our experiences with plaque psoriasis, with psoriatic arthritis, and Dr. Panico will talk about the possible connection.
Cosentyx secukinumab is prescribed for adults with moderate to severe plaque psoriasis 300 milligram dose and adults with active psoriatic arthritis 150 milligram dose. Don't use if you're allergic to Cosentyx. Before starting, get checked for tuberculosis. An increased risk of infections and lowered ability to fight them may occur, like tuberculosis or other serious bacterial, fungal, or viral infections. Some are fatal. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms like fevers, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, had a vaccine or plan to, or if inflammatory bowel disease symptoms develop or worsen. Serious allergic reactions and severe eczema-like skin reactions may occur.
Learn more at 1-844-COSENTYX or Cosentyx.com/Cindy.
Craftsman Days are here at Lowe's with big savings on the tools you need. Right now, get a free select tool when you buy the Craftsman V20 2-pack battery kit. Whether it's the backyard, the bathroom, or beyond, Craftsman has the tools to help you power through and get the project done right. Because DIYing is unpredictable, but your tools shouldn't be. Shop Craftsman at Lowe's today. Valid through 6/18 while supplies last. Selection varies by location.
It's really cool.
Bonjour, hello, and welcome to the Rosbiff Rugby Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things French rugby. The top 14 Pro D2 National, Champions Cup, Challenge Cups, Les Bleus, and of course the brilliant town cities, bars, restaurants, stadiums, fans, everything that makes the French rugby experience so magnificent. We are slowly, sneakily approaching the end of the French rugby season, but that will not stop my co-host Rob from adorning a very fitting and very timely bit of kit, and probably one of the better ones in the locker, Rob, the old Adidas Montauban.
Yeah, I think I said that before. I think it's my favourite of the jumpers anyway. Until I crack out my Patoka Horse Bayonne Christmas jumper, which I purchased on the bargain rail in Bayonne recently. But yeah, other than that and the Section Parwell's Christmas jumper, of the non-Christmas edits, this is probably the best one, yeah.
Very good. How are you keeping? How was your bank holiday?
Yeah, it was good. It felt quite cultured, but also quite boozy, I guess. I went to a beer festival, or notionally a beer festival on Saturday, and then went to Lewis and then to Brighton yesterday. But Lewis has got a number of great breweries, a number of great pubs. So,
bit of Harvey's.
Didn't have any Harvey's, but I did see the brewery. It's very central. Luckily, the shop was shut because that looked like somewhere that I could have spent a lot of money that I didn't need to be spending. But yeah, amazing. How about you? It's a much more muted bank holiday than yours, and I'm not just talking about our fantastic win on Saturday for Morden Wanderers. I'm talking about the big one yesterday. How are you feeling?
Oh, they're delighted. So yeah, it was a pretty full bank holiday. Played a bit of cricket on Saturday, and then Sunday went to a festival, which was good fun up in Brockwell Park. Beat the NIMBYs who tried to get it cancelled. Made sure to kick a few sods of turf out in protest just to really make my mark. But it was fantastic. Cross the tracks, very very good. Bit of Ezra Collective, bit of Michael Kiwanuka, very nice. And then Monday it was all building up to the cherry on top, the big sporting final of the weekend, and it was the last game of the English Football League season, and the mighty AFC Wimbledon, the real Dons, were thoroughly deserved winners, 1-0 over Walsall. So we're back up in League One for next year, which is very exciting. Ligue 1, I'm going to start calling it as they do in France.
Is it the first time since it all happened that AFC Wimbledon are above MK Dons in league?
No, I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure there've been a couple of points where we've been in League One. We had a half decent trot, albeit kind of hung in there in League One. So I don't think it is the first time it's ever happened.
League Two. So
yeah.
The big question, Richard, you know what's coming. What people want to know: Wembley Stadium food. What we looking at?
Well, we actually had along Wembley Way. There were some fairly slim pickings, to be perfectly honest. So we went for and we were both starving as well. Bit of kind of left the house, bit of an awkward time. So went for a very basic kind of chicken and chips, which were, it must be said, actually, given, I would say it's probably the best quality, terrible food I've had, if that makes sense. So it was all out of the bag, all deep fried right in front of you. So you know exactly what you're getting. But actually, the chips were salty, they were crispy, they were hot. And the chicken was kind of, sort of describe it as almost like a deluxe version of like a McDonald's McNugget, way bigger, a lot crispier, and far more obviously actually chicken as well. Inside the stadium, it must be said, what was on offer did not look amazing, but it was pretty much exactly the same. Big deal going around 2 sausage rolls for £8, but decided not to partake in that.
That sounds all right.
And the lager was Stella Unfiltered, which I wasn't expecting, but I didn't have any because the queues were absolutely insane. And pretty much everyone around us missed Wimbledon's goal because they went to get a half-time pint, as is often the case. So,
and that was
stayed firm.
Like £10 a pint?
I think it was like £8.75 or something like that. Yeah.
Well, we'll come on to it. You will be much better off later on this week with your stadium food, but we'll come on to that in a bit. The other big final, I guess, Rich, we should probably talk about it.
The lesser.
Probably. Champions Cup final.
Union Bordeaux Beg. Yeah, I mean, firstly, huge congratulations. I feel like UBB, team that we both have a soft spot for, even though they are kind of now one of the Galacticos of French rugby, at least.
I'm too hipster for that, mate. I'm UBB. That was hipster in like 2016, 2018. Like, done now. They've had their cool time. They're now mainstream because they've got all the big names and it's very fashionable to like them. Yeah, not hipster enough for me.
You don't like them,
even though I've got loads of different UBB bits of stash. I do like them, but
you've been 5 times
in my rankings. They're sliding down.
Too good for their own good. I think they were in the tournament thoroughly deserving. I think they were thoroughly deserving on Saturday in what was a pretty compelling, if slightly sticky at times, a little bit of a wild affair. And yeah, I'm delighted for them. Commiserations to Northampton, who hung in there in spite of having about 11 and a half players left in the entire playing squad by the end. But no, Bordeaux were thoroughly good money for it, and some of the scenes in Bordeaux, if nothing else, justify them winning. What's your slightly more nuanced, analytical take on the final itself, I suppose?
I think Bordeaux were worthy winners on the game itself, and obviously for the going into it, they would have had the edge on the worthy tournament winners. I think the second half took absolutely forever. Like, and you know how last year you said that the recording length meant that you kind of suspected there was extra time. I was watching the second half on my phone, and the phone on demand was 5 hours. And so like towards the end, it was like an hour and a half left. And it's like 75 minutes. I'm like, God, it'd be a hell of a comeback to draw it from here, from Northampton. So right up until the 78th minute, I was holding on for a draw that was going to go into extra time. But it never came because Northampton were kind of dead on their feet by then and just didn't have much that they could kind of get out. Like Finn Smith was very quiet, wasn't he? But I think the physicality that Bordeaux were able to bring off the bench against a team that was papering over the cracks in terms of player fitness meant that they kind of held them at arm's length, I guess, in that last 20. But it took forever.
It did. In terms of sort of performances, obviously Maxime Lucu was man of the match, and I think his sort of, I've put in my notes, redemption arc has been something that's been really lovely to see, actually, given, you know, how forlorn he was, a man who wears playing for Bordeaux so kind of dearly to him. Clearly, it was fantastic for him to get that accolade and to obviously be able to lift the trophy. Mathieu Jalibert was arguably the difference maker, wasn't he? As he
he's definitely the
often
difference
is.
maker. Like the Coleman try, which is the one with his footwork,
Incredible.
which hopefully people have seen, because that it may not, but it should go down as one of the great Champions Cup final moments.
Should be in the montages going forward.
Yeah, with the hand of back.
Yeah, that's exactly the one that was coming to mind.
And the
Poitrine.
Yeah, and the Sexton wraparound in 2011. But yeah, I think it was magical, and also what a defensive force he is now. Kind of couple of turnovers.
Yeah.
Who knew?
The turnover for the was it the second Penaud try where he get stripped and then nabs it back?
Yeah,
it's just quite unusual. I'm not sure I've ever seen the ball change hands that quickly in a single play.
I think those guys. I'm very concerned about the health of Louis Bielbarré, given that he didn't score a try. I'm pretty sure for the first time since December, which is quite something. But I think, they just had the power up front, really, didn't they? Like it was kind of like Coleman was really good, Cazo was really good. I guess the big talking point is, should Diaby have been on the pitch? Should that have?
Maybe not. I don't think it's like a full stone waller. I don't know. Maybe not.
I think he's lucky. I think he's lucky not
possibly,
to get red. It feels like a kind of 70% red, 30% yellow, possibly slightly more red than yellow for me. And I think he's lucky. But
I do think we're in a bit of a period. I loathe to talk about referees too much, but I think as a general point, I think we're definitely coming into or amidst a time where referees are looking for reasons not to send people off. Having for a few seasons, it felt like looking to bin people off. And I think for the most part, actually, we should probably be thankful for that slight change of approach.
Yeah, I think I'd love to know Sam Kane's opinion on that yellow card, for example. Yeah, and some of the ones we saw in the World Cup. But you're right, that has been
it's nearly 2 years ago now, right? So
you talk about the redemption arc of Lucu, and it's been great. Like people love him now, and that is fantastic. I guess there's an element of like the redemption arc for Jalibert as well, I think, because he is much maligned, or he's much maligned, but also much defended by UBB fans. Like there's so many conspiracy theories about front pages of Midi Olympique or L'Equipe or something. Like I saw one that was like, oh, they've chosen, basically you can't quite see Jalibert's face because there's an arm in his way, like when they're lifting the trophy. And it was like, obviously they chose the one where you can't see his face. There was something like comparing, I think before the semi-final, like Ramos was scoring a try or taking a kick, and like Jalibert was like complaining, and it's like, oh, they've painted him in a negative light. The Bordeaux fans are rightly very defensive of him. He is very defensive of Bordeaux. He's come through the Bordeaux Academy. His actual first club is in New Caledonia. I bet you didn't know that, but because his dad was in the army. But he's kind of Bordeaux through the academy through and through, really. I think he was born in Bordeaux despite growing up in New Caledonia. And he obviously had the kind of defensive comments about, you don't understand what it means to pay for our club. And he's very much part of the fabric of the city and the club, and has grown with that club, I guess. And I think the fact that he was such a brilliant player and such a difference maker, and yet it still feels people would not pick him in the France side. I don't know. It's I feel kind of sorry for him still, even though he's had like the day of his life, or days of his life. It'd be interesting to see kind of how people go forward with him and what the reaction is. And I guess it will depend on what happens to the rest of the top 14 season. But it's an interesting story.
I think it's nice for him to have been a difference maker in Bordeaux's two biggest games this season, because he was outstanding against Toulouse as well. His goal kicking needs a little bit of practice, but yeah, he was amazing in that. And I think I feel like we've spoken about it so many times, but like there's a natural inclination, isn't there, for somebody who plays with that sort of freedom and like cliche klaxon French flair to be a little bit skeptical and to assume that they don't maybe have that kind of mentality. Whereas, there's a lot being put on, and maybe fairly safe because of his performances in the Test arena. Someone like a Finn Smith, for instance, who's actually still incredibly callow and has a lot of rugby to play and learn.
Pretty anonymous game as well.
Yeah, he did, but he was he was amazing in that game against Leinster. Like it happens, it happens. But do you know what I mean? It's that kind of it's like a bit of a long running thing, isn't it? Always skepticism of people who can do something a bit different. But yeah, he was fabulous. Is it too early to talk about the celebrations? Because that's really where.
Well, I think just on the he would have been a candidate for me for player of the tournament. Penno just feels like a weird choice for player of the tournament, which is mad given he's basically like doubled the try scoring record. But I just think the impact on games and like what they brought to individual games, I think Luku or Lou Bielbiere was
maybe
in terms of pure performances. Like if I think back to the Leicester game, like Bordeaux don't win that without Louis Bielbiere. Like Leicester were kind of had them, and it was just the sheer pace of him and that tactic of lump it long and he'll chase it, which sounds very basic, but it is an X factor thing that they kind of had going. I think there's games that and the try against Toulouse after half time, like feels like there's more memorable X factor moments from Louis Bielbiere, and that is what has won them the tournament and got them to where they are and given them the, Damien Penaud got 6 tries against a Sharks team that couldn't be bothered. Like, cool, impressive numbers, but
maybe
you don't give Christian Wade like player of the season because he gets 6 against Worcester or Newcastle. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, perhaps. The problem is they select that shortlist way too early, don't they? It's like before the semi-finals. Because I don't think Finn Smith or Tommy Freeman were on that list, were they?
Freeman was great in the final, wasn't he?
So it's a bit silly. In the end, it had to be someone on the winning team. Maybe it was Luku. I'm not too concerned. The guy scores 14 tries in the Champions Cup. Like it's not like he's been on the sidelines. But yeah, as a quick word for Northampton, I thought nothing new in this, but Alex Cole was again following his performance against Leinster was absolutely unbelievable. And I think was the pick of the back row forwards for me by quite some distance. Yeah, he's I'd imagine probably decent chance of going on that Argentina tour now, which is cool for him. Celebrations. Do you want to cover the sort of post-match histrionics involving Poirot and Henry Pollock, or do we pass over that?
I think we've got to talk about the Pollock stuff in some way. I think my general view on this is quite good banter. Like generally, that's not my entire view. Generally, I think fair play. It's quite funny. Like you've picked up on it. If you're Pollock, you're like, I've clearly got to them. I've clearly made an impact. Quite funny that they're making such a big deal of it, even after that, like hours after they've won, and like the coach is doing it. The whole thing that I find really weird in this, that I don't like, that does leave an unsavoury taste, is Tavita Tatafu.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah.
Because the bloke didn't fucking play. Like, pardon my French, but fair enough giving it the big one if you're Jalabert and you've just had one of the performances of your life to win a Champions Cup final. You weren't on the pitch, mate. And now you're on the pitch, like, trying to throttle him out. Like, what? Who the hell are you? And then you're there doing it a whole time, and like it's like John Terry but worse.
Yeah, you know what? I'm glad you said that. That's pretty much my feelings on it. I saw because after the game it looked fairly anonymous, and the footage of Pollock, he looked a bit forlorn, but I think it was Charlie Morgan who might reference a couple of times actually today. He was saying that there was a little bit more that went on, and Poirot's been cited.
My sense was that there was something. He reacted to something. Yeah,
like the whole throat thing was not Tatafu pushing him away. I don't think that was apparently what was being referenced. I think it came before that. I'm totally with you. I think all the other celebrations and stuff are pretty fair game, and like frankly, if you're gonna kind of dish it as Henry Pollock, you have to take it, and that's.
I don't think it's dishing
totally
it
fair.
Though. It's like it's just because he did a try celebration, and that's what they're taking the piss out of. It's like I'm sure if like I don't know, England football like if Cole Palmer scored in a semi-final and did his celebration, and then Spain won the Euros, it would be the same. Like, and they might take the piss out of that, or like people might take the piss out of Ronaldo's celebration. Like, I think it's fine.
Yeah, but I think no, I completely agree. But it's not, there's something that we've praised and lauded and people love about him, and he's made such a big impact this season, more than any other kind of, anyone, certainly in terms of kind of column inches.
There's a lot on Twitter that's like, if you're going to dish it out, you got to take it. Like, he's not really dished it out. He's just been energetic and
dishing out maybe isn't the word, but I do think then if it comes back on you, so what? Like that doesn't matter, does it? It's like when you play cricket and someone gives it absolutely massive in the first innings and then, whinges to the umpire. But anyway, that's by the by. I agree though with the Tatafu stuff, and particularly actually amidst what looked like amazing celebrations in Bordeaux, Tavita Tatafu holding a sign, like a little homemade sign on the thing is like
saying calm down.
What is going on? So yes, I'm glad we're aligned on that.
But the centre of the celebrations has been one or two men. I think they finished. I think they have stopped celebrating, but they went well into yesterday with what looks like a street party with some keepy-ups and Big Ben Tameifuna putting on a police vest. Who Big Ben had already made some waves on this by having there was a fantastic photo of him having the cigar in the changing room. He was then long-arming beer from the trophy, which I thought, well, not a great effort, but it's quite funny. Then he puts the police vest on. I don't know what Nonstu Kwang is doing in the background, but he's posing. But they look sore. They look like they've been binned. And my favourite part of that is they're doing like all their keepy-uppies and whatever. Adam Coleman, like wearing like Aussie kind of sun hat, but still wearing his match shirt. Like he's clearly had time. He's not gone full Alex Good. He's had time to change out of his match shirt and get other stuff. But he's still
opted against it.
Yeah, he's still kept it on. Yeah.
Yeah, it does look amazing. Like a proper, quite sloppy, but in the best possible way, celebrations. At one point, just like sat on a street corner, it looks like.
Yeah, they're just in the street. Yeah. And the police van's there. Someone followed us today and I looked at there and she basically had selfies with like each player, but she's basically just going around like while they're like filming them while they're just having as though they're teenagers in a skate park somewhere in the UK. Like, yeah. The Nonster Kwang thing is so funny as well because he's retiring, isn't he? And I guess he might get a game against Toulon this weekend, but obviously renowned as a bit of a Jack the Lad. It always looks like he's been like superimposed into that. Like they've picked up him posing in the background from another picture and like dropped him in. It is quite something. But the photo, if you haven't seen it, the photo of Big Ben in the police vest is all-timer stuff. It's absolutely fabulous. It is on our X and Blue Sky, and it's currently on our story. It's probably gone by the time this comes out. Big Ben did repost it on his story as well, but that's also probably gone. So, but you should have been following Big Ben anyway because he had a lot of footage from the celebrations. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
Gazzotti there was also Gazzotti kind of sliding across the floor, wasn't there? Like doing a slip and slide in the change room, which very good.
Yeah. Congrats to you, BB. Any final closing thoughts on Bordeaux Bègles and the Champions Cup?
Not in the Champions Cup, no.
Quick word for the Friday night game then. Bath ran out fairly comfortable winners against Lyon. Yeah, I sort of watched this in patches and was a little bit disappointed by Lyon, I'll be honest with you. Threatened to crackle into life once or twice and that was sort of it.
Yeah, I think the thing with this game, and I don't know if you saw it, but or if you picked it up in the commentary, but there was a tackle from Sam Underhill that possibly could have been a red card. I don't know if you saw it. Don't know if I think they briefly mentioned it on comms, and that could have made all the difference.
I listened to I haven't for ages, but I listened to it at the rugby pod today. And
did he mention it more?
No, Jim Hamilton just went. Was there a red card, Goody? Was there a red card? Should there have been a red card? It was, he hammered him for it.
I don't think it changed the game, even if it's interesting because he had a very, very similar, or he did get red carded by Holly Davidson against my boys, Section Palois, which I at the time thought was quite harsh. So therefore I'm fine with it being a yellow.
Yeah, so am I.
I thought Maracou was good. I thought William and Guillard in the second row were really good. Outside of that, not much.
Yeah, it was a bit, I don't know. I mean, Bath are a very good side. I think
Spencer was absolutely amazing.
Yeah, he was. It kind of looked like he was playing different time zones to everyone else. He was pretty much pitch perfect, wasn't he? Some player. I completely agree. I think
they just have too much of them. Bath just have way too much of them, like power-wise, really.
Yeah.
Thomas Toy off the bench probably helps with that, doesn't it? But
useful. Yeah. I mean, I
think Leon are in a bit of a weird place now, I think, like with all of that. They're just, having been sorted, they now look a bit weird again, I think. And that was, they kind of picked, they did go strong. They picked a really big pack, and it didn't quite have enough against an English side, which is generally not what you expect from French sides. So, yeah. I also don't think Quiu is. I can see why he doesn't get picked for France. I don't think his service is quick enough.
Maybe.
His pass is not in the same realm as Luku or Legaric.
Yeah.
And I think that
that's
doesn't
fair.
help.
Interesting. Okay. Well, we'll probably leave that one there for any Leon fans who are, don't want to hear any more about it.
Well done, Bath. Well done, Finn Russell. It was all Finn Russell. Best player, best fly off in the world. Lions starting 10, as we can conclusively say.
He'll be starting 10 in that midweek game against the, whatever it is, Australian PM's 15. But no, I think he will be starting 10.
Previously a Maverick and someone that has had to come through all of that. And finally.
Yeah. Very good. So both those sides we mentioned, Lyon, Bordeaux, will be involved in the top 14 this weekend. There was one game in the top 14 on Saturday night, which was Castres v Clermont, which is obviously rearranged following the tragic events around Josiah Raisunga. Decent win for Castres, sort of fumbled the bonus or gave away the bonus point a bit to Clermont towards the end, which seems to be a bit of a theme recently. I feel like quite a few sides are contriving to give oppositions a bonus point, but they look pretty slick from what I saw of this.
They were the better team comfortably. They were unreal for like the first 15 minutes. Like some of the pace they played with.
Sidorni ball.
Arata is just in such good form, and as soon as there is half a gap, he is away. Just so quick as well. And when you've got like Shabuni, I thought he's like a rugby league fullback.
He's been awesome.
He's just waiting for that first break, and then off the offload, off the initial bust from whoever it is, whether it's Petitu or Goodhue or Papali, he's there, like ready to sweeping in behind like a James Tedesco. Yeah, he's been really good. Petitu was amazing in this game as well. I think there was quite a bit of emotion in that for him as well. It's quite nice to see. And Clermont, all right, fine.
Probably be happy with a losing bonus point. Yeah.
Yeah, they did well to get a bonus point.
And very kind of touching moment at the end, two teams kind of linked up singing, which is very lovely. It's been a horrible few weeks there, but I think Castres be pretty happy with that going into a home game this Saturday to Bayonne, which you would think a win-in would probably guarantee a barrage place or near enough, although it's fairly tight in there, but they've got a little bit of space. Bayonne, I think, are probably already there, aren't they? Give or take.
Bayonne are 10 ahead of Clermont, so you'd imagine that's
a point will do it for them. I think probably biggest game of the weekend involves arguably your boys, Rob.
Yeah, I got an offer to go today. I don't know if you saw that. Absolutely livid.
Yeah, our man Florian.
Yeah, well, it's the biggest game, and it's got nothing to do with Poe. Basically, it's all to do with Van, because Van. This is the week that they need to get. Well, it's going to be getting level. It's not even getting ahead. But with Perpignan and Stade going away, and they've got the home game, this is kind of like how Stade had it last round, where this is their chance to kind of make up ground. And I think they just need to win. Whether they'll get it, I don't know. Poe are in quite good form, I thought. And Poe have got an outside shot of the barrage. It's very, very slim. They are 5 points behind La Rochelle, who they play in the final round at home. So you could argue if they get 2 wins, which isn't entirely out of the reasoning, they could get into the barrage. They could get Champions Cup, which would be extraordinary for that team, I think. But they could equally go complete shags. It's a long way away game. Save yourself for the final home game in front of your own fans. End of season, blah, blah, blah. Who knows? But it's a must win for Van. And Van will probably have them up front, if we're honest. Like, they'll have the strength at scrum time. But if Poe can get parity there, then they've got plenty because they've got Joe Simmons back, they've got Guyton back with Browbury, Atasogbe, like all the boys in the backs in great form. So big one for Van. How do you see that one going?
I think Van will probably win. I think in terms of like matchups and just the need is so great. It's such an obvious thing to say because it has been every game. But I think they've actually, in fairness, been playing some pretty good rugby recently as well. Like they were decent away down at Bayonne. Kind of pushed them at Bayonne as close as pretty much anyone has all year, or certainly since the start of the season at the Jean Daget. So yeah, I think they'll inch through. Is my feeling there.
Said that these two teams are both terrible second half teams. So second half could be 0-0 or it could be anything. Anything can happen. Whoever goes into this at half time winning, put your half time bets on there. They'll get the win. But yeah.
Yeah. And then Stads, who are in that relegation mix, got to go to Clermont, which probably won't be a happy hunting ground. But
Clermont are really struggling with injuries up front. They had a 19-year-old Lucien prop on Saturday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, up against Collier, who actually, well, no, he really struggled in the first half, but I think he did have a little bit of a comeback as the game went on. But yeah, really struggling at Lucien and just in the front row. But yeah, I just really don't rate Stads. So
yeah.
And I think Clermont are patching stuff together again.
Toulouse host Lyon. Can I see that going one way? Toulon host a slightly bleary Bordeaux, which is actually a pretty big game given the kind of semi-final contention. But
Bordeaux can now afford to lose this because of the
gap.
Yeah, the Toulon loss to Pau and their win at home to Castres in the last round. They can afford to lose it and still go into the final.
Still round. In their hands, which is against Van, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
okay, lots to look forward to. Should we come back and discuss some Pro Day in just a moment? The Pro D2 Barrages were, or the barrage round, whatever you want to call it, was live, Rob. It was live in the UK for the first time. Apparently it has been broadcast before, but I don't know when. But certainly in the time that we've been following proceedings.
I think it was on Eurosport in like 2008 or something like that.
Yeah.
Like it was something really niche and it was like a good 15 years ago.
Just after a bit of Kabaddi and maybe before some... What was
Transworld
that
Sport.
program? Transworld Sport, yeah, unbelievable.
Which is still on air. I've seen it. I've seen it on my planner somewhere. It might even be on Premier Sports.
Oh, incredible!
It's definitely there. I've seen it.
What a program!
Yeah, it was bloody exciting, wasn't it? I mean, I don't know whether it was because it was Soyon Galem, but the whole of Thursday, I feel like it was kind of like, you know, when you've got a big party or like a. In the evening, and you're like the whole day is just like your work party or like your big meet up with your mates or something like that, or you've got a train, like a really important train to catch to go on holiday. It's kind of like that sort of level of excitement all day where you're like
something at the end of the day.
It's something at the end of the day that is distracting you and like basically is casting a shadow over the whole rest of your day because you just can't stop thinking about it. And maybe it was because it was SAXV, our boys, but I was so excited. I couldn't think of anything else on Thursday. Yeah, it was really, fair play to FR-UK, to Tim, Joe and Dougie. And I think there was someone else referenced in the article, wasn't there? But Dougie and Joe, I met in San Sebastian, Joe Worsley, obviously. And Tim, I very briefly met in San Sebastian as well. But I was aware of Dougie as a kind of the producer. He does the Maul Over podcast as well. But yeah, fair play to them for getting it and also for making it work. I was a little bit apprehensive when it took until about 7:55 to get going. I was like, oh, please say that there's no hiccup and they've not had any bad luck with it or something like that. But once it got going, it worked. It worked, I think.
Yeah, it was good. It was really good and very, I felt the coverage or the commentary it's sort of slightly odd, isn't it? Because you're so used to, there's so much live sport. You're so used to like TV commentary where everything is kind of stage managed and directed and you have replays and you know exactly what's coming. And, you know, sometimes when you hear something over like a YouTube stream, but I thought it was great. And it came across just very genuine and enjoyed it. And there was a shout out to the Provence seafood stand, which, you know, my nemesis. So slightly perturbed to have that rubbed back in my face. But other than that, it was great. As you say, fair play indeed.
And it was a couple of weird games, I think. I think the barrage last year was a little bit like this, with the kind of bit of a hammering with one side that had a big budget up against a side that was very much punching above its weight, a very similar kind of parallel to the Grenoble Dax game, albeit not quite as much of a beatdown, but it did feel like Soyengalem's kind of luck had run out almost, didn't it? And there were a lot of references from Joe and Tim to the physicality of Provence and whether kind of SAXV could get parity and what they could do, and then if they could launch their attack. And I think we kind of referenced that, yes, Provence has a very big pack and they're powerful, but Soyengalem have not been, you know, they're not quite kind of get the ball in and out and then fling it about. Then, you know, they have shown their own strength up front at times, but it did look like they perhaps had run out of juice a little bit up front. And I think it was a bit of it was referenced that they were missing Ben Botica, who might have given them a bit more shape to their attack, which might have helped. But I think he's been coming back from injury, and Mathis Lafon has been very good, and his relationship with Artur Proulx's been good. But the impact that Tilsley had off the bench in the second half, they could have just done with a lot more of that in the first half, a bit more like physicality and a bit more grunt to get them over the gain line. Just ballast. Like when we saw him in January, he was so physical, and it did feel like in terms of the carrying in that first half, it was basically Masibaka or no one, and it's quite easy to shut someone down when you know they're the only ball carrier. And I think Provence got a bit lucky. Like the Boujahir try was just a complete fluke.
Yeah, shins it through off the north offload.
Well, that is not an offload.
Well, squeezes out.
That is the defender's arm knocking the ball out. Like he's lost loose carry.
I didn't see the slow. I didn't actually see the kind of replay of it. It looked sort of semi legit, but it was not a chicken win offload. And amidst that, very, very sad to see George North limp off. He kind of got up. I think he got up after that and then went down again, which was, I mean, if you've been out for that long, you probably want to play as much as possible. But he gave it everything and he looked real good. Inga looked unreal, both sides of the ball, which we kind of knew was going to be the case. So that was really cool to see a bit more of that. Gopperth still rocking it. And what a player.
Probably a player that we haven't talked about that much. And I'm probably slightly reticent to talk about him because it feels very obvious to kind of just name check the one English player that we know plays for them. But Tamana Harrison was unbelievable in that game. And I've kind of shied away from trying to talk about him that much, but you can't not talk about him after this game. He was absolutely phenomenal. Like it was his impact that made it look like Men Against Boys, because it did feel like Men Against Boys at times. And it was Tamana Harrison that was the forefront of that.
Yeah, he was. He looked a bit bigger and harder and stronger than pretty much everyone in purple. Unfortunately, I mean, I think it's one of those. They've had an amazing season, Soyengalem. I don't think anyone realistically expected them to finish where they did. Probably bar the side themselves, and they've been fully deserved as well. I think they had the best away record in the league, which I think is really something to be incredibly proud and encouraged by. It's it's quite something to go and produce the results away from home. They have done. They're still one of the lower budget teams, and I think they've got some really good young forwards as well coming through. I think I can't remember the two brothers who we name checked earlier in the year. Who they're only gonna get better, you'd hope. Yeah. But I think you're right. Unfortunately, did look a little bit Men Against Boys, and it just probably unfortunately shows that the sort of best and the rest in Pro Day there is a little bit of a gap there, as there probably should be, with some of the differences in budget and infrastructure and history and all of those things. But it shouldn't distract from an amazing season for Soyengalem.
Yeah, Moran Briat, the brothers. And I thought Hubert Texier off the bench as well, like a player that we kind of referenced last week as being someone to look out for, someone a bit lither, a bit quicker. I thought he made a real impact. He kind of gave the energy that they perhaps gave the energy you want if you're bringing someone on at half time from after a lackluster first half. I thought he was brilliant. But the back row, and not just Harrison, but Piazzoli, who was really, really physical. I thought they just looked a better team. Malaise looked great at tie head as well. Yeah, it was men against boys. Off-Port still looked good. Still had a few nice touches. So nice to see a bit of that.
Very good. The real drama, though, was Friday night. Colomiers Montauban. Extraordinary finish. Genuine scenes.
It was a weird old game as well. Like, because they were 14-0 up, Colomiers, within about
6 minutes, was it?
Yeah.
7 minutes?
Which was bizarre. And then just for them to kind of come back. It wasn't the prettiest game, I'd say. It was scrappy. And I think Montauban will do well to challenge Brive next week. But incredible drama at the end, because there was a lot of chat during these barrage games about the new balls, which I think is absolutely like so mad. Quite like, that's just such...
What's the story? I don't know if I've
They've brought in a new ball, and it's not made by Gilbert. So they've been playing with Gilbert balls all season.
For the barrage?
They've brought in a new ball for the knockout phase. It's like, I don't know why these things happen. Like, it's like when you go to a World Cup and it's like, oh no, there's a new ball for the World Cup. It's like, great, but why can they now no longer play football normally? Like
the Jabulani,
yeah. Like,
the Pro Day de Jabulani was called all sorts.
These Pro Day doubles these ones. Do you remember in like the mid noughties, everyone play in the Six Nations? They all play with Gilbert, but
Italy had like
a mitre or something like that. Or like
they're amazing. They were like square.
It looked like a rock.
Yeah,
and it had that similar vibe. Like, I don't think I've ever seen as many kicks from the touchline or like touchline conversions like fall short of the posts. Like, it looked like no one could kick it. So for Fortunel to slot one from 45 meters, there was a penalty on about like before that was about a similar sort of distance out that he didn't take because presumably it's out of his range. So I don't know what was going on there, but he absolutely nailed that drop goal. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably a bit of a French rugby badger, and you've probably seen it, but it's the quality of the drop goal is so good. It like side on, as soon as he struck it, you're just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
He's absolutely creamed that. And I didn't realise he'd done it basically kicking a trifle over the post from 45 metres. It was, you could tell Joe Worsley was obviously the co-commentator, wasn't he? And he was like, oh my God, what kick?
I'm going to eat my words.
The only slight disappointment was that, having given him the big build-up, Bosville had been hooked, so it couldn't have been him. That would have been...
I watched this on the train back to London after a few drinks, and in my kind of dozing stupor, I saw this kind of Montauban drop goal happen, and I was like, fucking Bosville's done it. What a legend. And then realised he wasn't even him. He had a tough game because he's not used to the balls, mate. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
It was, if you needed proof that these balls are wrong uns, Bosville struggled. Yeah, hopefully they'll go back to Gilbert's next week and Bosville will be slotting them from 70. He did do one spiral bomb that made complete mockery of the Colomiers winger, which was quite nice to see. Kind of slightly more masterful, as you'd expect from him. Yeah, Montauban they weren't fantastic. They were very, very sloppy in the first 10, which allowed the two Colomiers tries, but it showed enough. I thought the back row, well, not Shea, the South African, forgot his hands. He had a genuine walk-in in the first half that just dropped, and then he dropped a couple of kickoffs as well. Yeah, it was a proper, like it's an open goal. He is given the ball 10 metres in front of the posts with no one in front of him, and he just dropped it. But the other two back rowers, Ringay and Fred Quercy, I thought were absolutely brilliant. Fred Quercy, the breakdown, really physical, captain's effort. And Ringay is a really athletic player. We've seen bits of throughout the season. Looks a really, really promising prospect. Young 21-year-old, I think he is. But yeah, you mentioned budgets with Provence and Soy-en-Galem. I think Colomiers were 13th biggest budget or 12th. They were they were very, very similar to Soy-en-Galem, whereas Montauban were like 7th. So, and I remember at the start of the season, we kind of mocked Montauban for, what have they done with their big budget? Like they've underperformed. But actually now they've kind of proved the doubters wrong on that front. But yeah, Colomiers 12th.
Remarkable to think they were this time last year heading into the access match and beat Narbonne by a point.
Yeah.
And now they've got a Pro Day de semi. It's quite the turnaround.
Ivan Rayak, who scored one of the tries on Friday, was the try scorer, wasn't he? In the crucial try. I actually was meaning to look at how many players played in that played on Friday, or maybe ahead of the game when we see the team. It would be interesting to see how many of them played in that access match last year.
Yeah.
Be quite a few. They've not had that many changes, I don't think.
No. Right, so that then sets up the two semi-finals this week. Grenoble host Provence at a sold-out Stade des Alpes. Yeah, it feels like it could be a cracker though, right? Grenoble you'd hope, back to full fitness. They did struggle with injuries a little bit, didn't they, towards the back end?
Their team in the final round was full noise. That very full noise to me. Their home record is incredibly impressive. I will be amazed. I should say, like, if they lose, I will eat my hat or something like that. Maybe I need something like that, but can't see them not winning that. Their home record is just so impressive.
Yeah,
I tend to agree or disagree?
Yeah, I do. No, I do agree, but I don't know. There was a level of aggression in Provence's performance that I thought was quite eye-opening. But I think Grenoble, that they are a bigger, better, more physical side, aren't they? And as you say, the home record is brilliant. They've got
10 bonus points from 15.
They've got some real
wins from 15 wins.
Yeah, they've got some real quality, and they'll be rested. And I think that that in itself could make a big difference.
No George North. I wonder if
no George North.
I wonder if Drouet will be back for Provence. But the other thing about that Grenoble team is that they've got
a Rosbiff guest in Sam Davis. So
exactly, yeah, we got to back them. But I think they've kind of been together a little bit longer. Feels like they've got a bit more cohesion. They had the heartbreak of last year. I think they mean business.
Yeah, very exciting. And then the second semi-final is Brive v Montauban, which you said at the top, Montauban feels like a pretty big ask. I don't know. Brive have had the odd squeaky game at home, but they just seem too big, too much quality, you would assume. But
I think they just hit those squeakier games at home were now quite a few months back. They were pretty formidable.
Rampaging through the end of the season a bit, weren't
they? They had a real run of form towards the end of the season they lost the last game, but that was a complete shags. Yeah. Before that, they'd won 7 in a row. So and that includes away games. So, and you're going to be at that game, Richard?
Yeah, slightly bizarrely, slightly last minutely. I'd kind of eyed up this weekend as a potential to squeak one more in before the end of the season. And the one I was looking at was, I kind of assumed Carcassonne were going to lose to Chambéry, but our man Johnny McPhillips rather put pay to that. And it turns out trying to get to Chambéry is very, very difficult out of ski season, and because it's half term, flights are a bit of a disaster as well. But so did a little bit of sleuthing, bit of sniffing about, and managed to, in a bit of a frenzy, managed to get a ticket for Brive. Obviously, we went right at the start of the season, although it felt slightly unfinished business. So gonna head along to that. Got a very cheap flight out of Stansted, and then an even cheaper one back from a place called Rodez, which I'd genuinely never heard of. It's north of Albi, so the sort of distance between Castres and Albi. But there's some sort of deal on, and I've managed to get a train between Brive and Rodez for €1, which is a 2-hour and 10-minute train. So I don't know. I could be in like a freight train. I might be with actual livestock. I'm not sure, but I'll be at the Stade Amédée Domenech, if nothing else, on the Friday evening.
That I feel like it was a roughly similar weekend. Maybe it was slightly earlier, but I went to Perpignan last year and had my €1 train to Prague.
Maybe
it's like a May.
Yeah, possibly. So no double headers this time, but I think I was looking at. There are a few options, but the return flights from last day of half term from other places are extortionate, to put it mildly. But it should be fun.
Chambéry from Britain. Shame it's not at Aurillac. That would have been ideal.
Well, that would have been incredible.
Mate, get on the Aurillac bus. Just
it's getting back.
Get a lift with Ronan Loughnane.
I did have a look to see if they were doing a supporters bus. I couldn't find one, and get the flights back were wild. Basically, turned like a very cheap weekend into probably could have had a week away somewhere nicer than Brive, but. There we go. We will see. I have slightly ballsed up because I got it. It was all a bit last minute, and the accommodation. So I was initially lining up Le Grand Hotel Brive, which was only £50 a night. Nice 3-star number. I'm now staying at the Golden Cock, in the middle of town, Le Coq d'Or.
Would you call me?
Which looks like some sort of Alan Partridge travel tavern, but apparently the people who own it are really lovely. So,
I bet they are.
Yeah. We'll see. I'll report. I'll try and do some. I know I'm not quite as prevalent on the socials, but I'll try and do some. Something at some point on Friday if I don't get held hostage in Le Coq d'Or.
And if you are in Brive, go hunt out Richard.
Yeah. Also, I've got a spare ticket, so yeah,
definitely.
If you're listening to this and you happen to be in Brive, hit us up. All right. Probably a quick word then. Aurillac Chambéry. Where's your money in that? Got to back the lack, surely.
I've got back in the lack. Yeah. I think they've got a bit more. They've got a bit more international quality on them.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, definitely. We will come back for a couple of Petit-Fours and Digestifs in just a sec. Okay, Rob, where do we want to start to close the pot? Do we want to go transfery type stuff?
No, I was going to start with the back end of Pro D2 really, and that National Pro D2 access match, and start with Biarritz because that's still a live situation. And there was actually a general meeting this afternoon. So this afternoon being Tuesday, 5:00. So this could have all changed. But as of the statement, 26th of May, it was yesterday, the whole board of directors has resigned. There's now a new president called Cyril Aristogay, who I think was sniffing around before, and I think is mates with Steran, the big billionaire that's sniffing around the club. James Coughlin is still there as the vice president, I think, judging by my dodgy translation. They're the ones going to be in charge of the transition phase of the club. I think that transition phase being the whole restructuring of the board and club finances, I guess. Sean Hegarty, who was very much involved before and his head was being called for, understandably, given some of the financial mire that Biarritz were in. I think they supposedly used up all of the 2 million euros that the bond through Steran had afforded them. Sean Hegarty stays on as chairman of the supervisory board and has the full confidence of the club. I don't know what the implications of any of that are, if I'm honest, but there's been some change, and those are the people now in charge. Some of them were there before. I don't quite know enough about what on earth is going on to share any more insight, but that is some hashtag insight for you.
Very good.
And yeah. I should say they've appealed, obviously.
Yes, financial wranglings. Speaking of which, 250 grand to get Owen Farrell out of his Racing contract, apparently, is the bounty they've Lorenzetti's put on him. Been quite a few reports, right, that he's looking to chin things off a little bit early, which I think is a shame, actually, not least because Racing are actually going okay now, and I mean they'll probably be a bit madcap next season like they often are, but I would have quite liked to have seen him playing in a slightly more settled side. Sort of very much wondering what could have been. That
was reported in L'Equipe, so I don't think there's been, other than kind of purposing that, I don't think there's been anything in the English press or anything from Saracens to confirm that. But yeah, he's looking to come out and going to become a player coach at Sarries, which I know Kevin Sorrell stepped down, and then there was another coach that has finished now at Saracens. So I think Alex Good is going to become a coach. And I guess there's in theory, maybe it's someone putting 2 and 2 together and getting 5, but there is another coaching role that has opened up, which would appear to have opened up for Owen Farrell. I think the thing with Racing is this is interesting because Dan Lancaster is also out of contract. Their first choice fly half, Dan Lancaster. Strong rumours that he is looking for a move to Glasgow to pursue a Scotland career as he is eligible through a grandparent. Glasgow have strongly denied this, though. But from a Racing perspective, they could be going into next season with no Farrell, no Lancaster. So that's their 2 first-choice 10s, really, apart maybe Antoine Gibert. No Nolan Le Garrec and no Clovis Labai. So 2, I think Labai might have been capped. He's been on tour but with France. So 2 French international scrum halves and 2 playmaker fly halves to go into a season without -4 playmakers seems quite extreme. They are getting Carbonneau, aren't they? Leo Carbonneau from Brive, but that's just a
big step up. Huge step up. I know he's very highly rated, but he's kind of fallen behind Ferte, right?
Yeah.
Who's off to Toulon, I think.
Yeah,
interesting. Although it does potentially leave some room in the coffers for some sort of very Racing, like who else can they go through?
Moanga.
So they've had
That's the one that I've
Sexton,
seen.
Moanga, because Pollard's already signed. He's going back to South Africa, isn't he? Manny Libuk, he was rumoured to be speaking with Bayern, I think.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Moanga.
Moanga, because I think he's about to win another title, so it's kind of like he's won 2 Japan titles. He might as well go somewhere else. Maybe Mackenzie. He was being sniffed around, wasn't he?
Yeah, there was talk of La Rochelle for quite a while.
Yeah,
that'd be cool. Well, either of those would be quite cool.
You mentioned Toulon there. The president confirmed the signing of Mathis Ferte, which is very cool, very exciting. Obviously, Brive might well come up, and he might well play a big part in their promotion. But for him to go to Toulon, don't know where he's going to play. Whether he's going to be, I don't know whether he is now a scrum half or whether we've seen him in the under-20s as a fullback wing.
It's two quite big queues at Toulon for 9s and 15s.
Yeah, or wingers even.
Yeah.
But he is absolutely rapid. But they have also signed Zach Mercer and Nacho Brex, which is 2 very cool signings. We knew Mercer. We'd heard strong rumours about Brex. They're sniffing around Menoncello. I mean, they haven't got Fyanganuku. Brex is a pretty good replacement for that. Maybe time to move on from Jeremy Sanzel, bringing him up as well.
Never.
Do you reckon he's going to be like the next Bosville? Like Sanzel just still rolling out at like
I'd have thought
39.
so, yeah. I reckon so.
A fly half that probably will not be signed by Racing, who is English, Billy Searle, who was released or came to the end of his contract with Agen. There's strong rumours around Leicester, which makes sense. Yeah. Very similar type of player to Jamie Shilcock, who is off to Brive. Other coaching appointments / players becoming coaches. Brice Dulin, Brice to Nice is no longer. He is set to retire at the end of the season. He's been forced to retire, is it?
I think it's instant. Like, it's now. Yeah.
No, what his retirement is, and then he's joining the coaching team at the end of the season.
I thought he's been told to retire on medical grounds like a couple of games earlier. I could be wrong.
Oh, wow. Well,
either way.
We'll lose to Perpignan at the weekend.
Bit of a legend, Brice Dulin.
Yeah. The other one I saw was Pierre-Louis Barassi has finally signed a contract. Quite rogue that it was until now to get a contract extension at Toulouse, but he is extended until 2028, which is pretty good news for him.
3 years in Toulouse. That's you're just signing that, aren't you?
Have you got any?
Very good.
It's been a hot week for transfers.
Yeah, sometimes a little bit hard to keep up with, such as the persistence of movement. No, I haven't, but I have got a couple of Rosbif listener tales, which I think are quite good. One's less a tale. One is from Jolly Hargraves, big fan of the pod, great bloke, who sent us. I don't know if this is legit. I can't find the article, or I haven't actually clicked on it. But the picture is Mar Nonu earlier in the season re-signed for Toulon at the age of 42, and he sent us this just saying digestifs underneath, and quite rightly so. Apparently there's a man, the headline goes, man who spent $250,000 on surgery to look like Mar Nonu says women find him irresistible. And
it's quite funny. He looks like a waxwork of Mar Nonu, but like a really crap waxwork.
Like one of those, there's a couple of museums, aren't there, where one of our mates went to the one in Krakow, the Waxwork Museum. Yes, it looks like Mar Nonu from the Krakow Waxwork Museum. It's
fair play for the commitment to do the eyebrow slit. I quite like that.
Yeah,
attention
to
detail.
Quite a big eyebrow slit. Yeah, try and sniff that out if you can. It's it's different.
Here's one, Richard. This is your homework for next week, and I've got one from your homework for me last week. If you had $250,000 to spend, who would you to have your face transformed into a rugby player's face? Who would it be?
Oh, wow. Okay, I'll give it some thought. Cool. And then the other story, we shouted out the week before Reece and Kerry, who'd been on or planning to be on their travels to Pau, followed by a game between Orion Morsons and Merignac. And they gave us a full update and some pictures. Sound like an amazing trip. Little venture to the Notre Dame du Rugby, which I think is quite near Mont de Marsan, which I know is very much on our list at some point. Fantastic win, obviously, for Pau over Toulon. Great photo they sent of them with a very happy Luke Whitelock and a livid-looking Mathieu Bastereau, which is hilarious. And then most importantly, though, the the game between, they were travelling to Mérignac, or no, Rion-Morsans. That game was cancelled because the coach filled in the team sheet incorrectly the week before. The week before was null and void. So it was replayed at Mérignac, which ended in a tie. And then we got a little update this week saying that Mérignac, who finished 6th in the league, went on to produce a win away from home. They won 32-26, 2 games away from Fédératin, and they've got to go and play Cahors, which is actually not a million miles from Brive on Sunday. So, yeah, shout out to Reece and Carey. It looked like an amazing trip. Some hilarious photos, some footage of them singing the Welsh national anthem at Mérignac Rugby Club. Splendid work. Please, if you are on one of these trips, let us know.
I think you should go to Cahors. A, because it's a type of wine, so presumably the wine is very good. And B, I'm 99% certain that is where Emilien Gaeton started his career, as well as a few others. So, well, I have Mérignac news, Richard, from Rugby Rama. If you go on Rugby Rama on Instagram, it may well be on their website. It's from 6 days ago. So what's that? It will be from last Wednesday. Their junior team, I don't know who they were playing, but there is a video of L'incroyable essai des juniors de Mérignac, and it is the number 8 for Mérignac, who the caption I saw was basically a reference to Daka Wanger. Has shades. It hasn't quite got the drama of like the physio next to the bouncing ball, but it is a length of the field try from the number 8 with a chip and chase inside from his own try line, and then he runs a length. So it does have shades of Penny Daka Wanger, which is very cool. Did you see the other big game this weekend, Richard? That was you may have seen it in our messages to Elgin.
It was Carcassonne Albi. Was it in the
French
League?
Super League, Rugby League?
Yeah.
The French Super League Grand Final. Albi RL versus Carcassonne 13. Carcassonne, they've got a statue of a rugby league player outside their ground, actually. And unfortunately, that was not, I was initially, it's El Clasico in the grand final, but it's not. Albi is in the Tarn, so it's not quite El Clasico, but pretty close.
I was slightly gutted because at one point I saw that and I was like, it's this weekend. I can go to that game in Albi, but yeah, a week too late, unfortunately.
Talking of Carcassonne, we didn't get a chance to ask Johnny if there had been any brilliant celebrations with the Brenner Shield, but I did see Paul Gadea on the beach somewhere trying to surf on their National Brenner Shield. Have you got anything else? I've got my homework from last week. One other thing, I did see Alex Ruiz using his leg as a base. He hasn't got a clipboard, but he did have the 4-way biro. Clearly that, I think you can tell, budget discrepancy between Sawyer and Golem and Toulon, because Pierre Mignoni gets a flashy clipboard that's clearly made of pretty stern stuff, the amount of damage it receives, whereas poor old Alex Ruiz at Sawyer and Golem budget can't stretch to a clipboard. And if you are in the market for a 4-way biro, you can buy a Section Paloise one for €6 from their online shop.
It's all green and white.
It is, yeah. No, the pen is. I've come up with my play about French rugby. I was slightly disappointed in my suggestion last week. France at the 2011 World Cup. And there has already been a TV movie called The Kick, debuted in August 2014 from the Kiwi side, about centering on Stephen Donald. But I've got some cast members. I think it's going to do well on TV. Marc Lièvremont is going to be played by Matt LeBlanc. In the role of Captain Thierry de Sautoir is Will Smith. Aurélien Rougerie is going to be played by Orlando Bloom. Morgan Parra by Andrew Scott, with Tom Hollander as Dimitri Yashvili. Maxime Médard obviously being played by Hugh Jackman. I've gone for Luke Evans in the role of Damian Try. The one I was really struggling with, I couldn't find anyone to play Imanal Aaron Aldaki, and I feel like he's quite a central character, kind of someone that needs a bit of presence, but I couldn't find an actor for that. But the tale of that World Cup and the mutiny and turning against Marc Lièvremont and just basically being a team of legendary players decided to do it all their own way and nearly won the World Cup. I feel like that's quite a good story.
Nice. So you've gone for the full Netflix serialization over the, like the little local stage play. You think it's big enough for the, like an
yeah, I think so. And I think I didn't quite have. Once I'd kind of thought about the people that could play it, I kind of thought, no, we can go big, we can go Hollywood.
I think that's it for us from another week. Anything else from you, Rob?
No, just get in touch with us with who you would pay $250,000 to look like. But get in touch with us generally. We want to hear from you. Share us widely. Mention us in the comments on the live chat on the FR-UK YouTube. Say Rosby's Rugby, know loads about XYZ. Rich is there, blah, blah, blah. Share us, mention us, follow us, subscribe, like. give us a review if you haven't already. All of that stuff. It does genuinely help us. So the more you can share us widely, the better.
Get around us, I believe, would be the Australian term for it. But as ever, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed the Champions Cup final. We have the real business end now. We're into the Pro Day de semi-finals. We have the National Pro Day de Access match, and we have some huge games at the top 14 to chew into this week and discuss next week. So we will look forward to being with you then. In the meantime, that's been Rob. I've been Richard. We've been the Rosbiff Rugby podcast. Au revoir.
Au revoir.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
With so many options, why choose Arizona State University?
For me, the only online option was ASU because of the quality. Their faculty was really involved with their students and care about your personal journey. The dedication to my personal development from my professors, that's been extremely valuable to me.
Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.